Have you ever noticed why the rulers of the world are often the most merciless? Why is it that history's greatest empires, built on blood and betrayal, still cast their shadows over us, while the names of the virtuous fade like dust? Tonight, I invite you to step behind the curtain of conventional wisdom and explore a hidden reality, the dark secret of why the worst people often succeed. What if I told you that goodness is not a virtue but a vulnerability, that the traits we are taught to condemn, ruthlessness, cunning, cold calculation, are the very tools that carve destinies? This is not a fairy tale. This is the law of the jungle, written into our bones, coded into our DNA. For centuries, philosophers have dared to ask, why do the worst among us rise? Nietzsche called it the will to power. Evolutionary psychologists see it as survival's sharpest blade. But tonight, we go deeper into the shadowed corridors of the human psyche, where light and darkness wage an eternal war. In this video, we'll examine how evolutionary instincts and social hierarchies conspire to reward those who are willing to shatter ethical boundaries. We'll peel back the layers of a system that worships strength and ruthlessness, leaving you to question, is morality merely an illusion? A comforting myth in an uncaring world? You've been lied to. Since childhood, you were handed a script: work hard, be kind, play fair. A comforting tale spun to keep you docile, blind to the raw machinery of existence. But strip away the fairy tales, and what remains? A primal truth, one that Darwin glimpsed in the wild, Machiavelli scribbled in candlelight, and every conqueror carved into history's stone. Life is not fair. It is a duel. Here's the paradox. Society preaches morality because it is fragile. The rules you're told to obey? They're not for the rulers, they're for the ruled. The elite don't play the game. They rewrite it. Think of Rome's emperors, who draped tyranny in togas of civic duty, or modern titans who preach ethics while monopolizing markets. The game hasn't changed. Only the masks have. But why? Why does this ancient script repeat? Because beneath the veneer of civilization, we are still animals. Evolution did not reward the meek. It annihilated them. Your DNA carries the imprint of ancestors who lied, stole, and slaughtered to survive. The dark triad, narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy, is not a glitch. It is code that runs the operating system of power. To understand why darkness thrives, we must journey back to the primordial savanna, where survival was not earned by kindness, but by cunning. Imagine your ancestors, hungry, desperate, willing to do anything to see another sunrise. This is where the game began. Evolution is not a moral philosopher. It is a gambler, and over millennia, it bet on traits we now call dark: ruthlessness, manipulation, a hunger for dominance. These were not immorals. They were tools that separated the living from the dead, tools that coded into your very biology. Meet the dark triad, 3 strands of DNA in the helix of power. To us, they sound monstrous, but to the victors of history, they were survival tools. Narcissism, the unshakable delusion that you are the hero of the story, even when you're the villain. Machiavellianism, the art of seeing humans as pawns and morality as a menu to pick from. Psychopathy, a lack of empathy, which allows for decisive, fearless action. Think of Genghis Khan, a psychopath who built an empire on corpses. Steve Jobs, whose narcissism bent reality to his will. Or the CEO who slashes jobs to inflate a stock price. These are not outliers. They are expressions of the primal code still humming in your blood. But here's what they won't tell you. These traits are not accidents. They are adaptations. The narcissist's arrogance, a weapon against doubt. The Machiavellian's deceit, a shield against betrayal. The psychopath's detachment, armor against a world that eats the tender-hearted alive. Nietzsche called it the will to power, the unstoppable force that drives us to conquer, create, and consume. Not for survival, for dominion, yet society condemns this force, shackling it with words like evil and unethical. But ask yourself, who benefits from those chains? Morality is a leash, and the elite, they chew through it. They understand a truth that paralyzes the rest. Fairness is a myth sold to the masses. The game's true rules are written in the language of leverage, illusion, and force. Yet this is not nihilism, it is clarity. The same clarity that allowed Caesar to cross the Rubicon, Rockefeller to monopolize oil, and 1,000 tycoons to turn competitors into relics. They saw the world not as it should be, but as it is, a Darwinian theater, where the stakes are not right or wrong, but win or die. Now we descend into the abyss, where philosophy's coldest truths collide with psychology's darkest revelations. Consider the Stanford Prison Experiment, conducted in 1971 by psychologist Philip Zimbardo. In this experiment, participants were randomly assigned roles as either prisoners or guards in a simulated prison environment. Within days, the guards began exhibiting abusive and authoritarian behavior, while the prisoners became submissive and psychologically distressed. The experiment was halted after just 6 days due to the extreme and unethical conditions that emerged. Not because they were evil, because the will to power is a sleeping beast in us all. Machiavelli knew this. In The Prince, he didn't glorify evil, he diagnosed it. The ends justify the means isn't a philosophy. It's an autopsy of human nature. But here's where the story twists. The greatest conquerors, those who shape epochs, are not pure psychopaths. They are alchemists. They change darkness into light. Steve Jobs' cruelty birthed elegance. Rockefeller's greed fueled progress. Even Genghis Khan's brutality united fractured tribes. Yet this path has a cost. Nietzsche's Übermensch, the Overman, is not a tyrant. He is a creator, one who masters his demons without becoming them. But few can walk this razor's edge. For every Caesar who builds an empire, there's a Nero who burns it down. For every visionary CEO, a fraud like Elizabeth Holmes, whose ambition curdles into delusion. Power is a double-edged sword, and the worst people wield it recklessly. They climb highest, but fall hardest, because the same traits that conquer narcissism, detachment, ruthlessness, blind them to their own fragility. They forget. Every throne sits atop a volcano. So here we stand, at the edge of revelation. The fog has cleared. The choice is no longer theoretical. It's something you feel deep inside. Are you going to hide behind a fairy tale, or step into the ruthless truth that life offers? Let's be clear. This is not a call to villainy. It's a call to awakening. You don't have to become a monster, but you must stop pretending monsters don't exist. Remember, Caesar crossed the Rubicon not because he was evil, but because he refused to be a pawn. Rockefeller didn't build an empire by following rules, but by rewriting them. And you stand at your own Rubicon. Will you retreat to the safety of lie, or burn the bridge and march? Here's the final truth. Power is not out there. It's in here, in the shadow you've been taught to fear, in the hunger you've been shamed for feeling. The worst people succeed not because they're stronger, but because they embrace the truth. If these insights have sparked a fire within you, subscribe to our channel. And one thing more. Do you feel that achieving real power requires embracing relentless and ruthless ambition? Or is there still room for fairness and perseverance in reaching the top? Share your perspective in comment below.